Hello and welcome to the NEOGOV webinar, Illinois Experts Talk Talent Attraction and DEI. My name is Julius Rhodes, the former Director of Human Resources for Cook County and now founder and principal of the MPR Group, an HR and management professional services firm located in Chicago, Illinois. I'm delighted to be with you as we go through these issues of talent attraction and DEI. I think we've assembled an outstanding list of panelists that are willing and able to share with you their thoughts on this most important topic. Before I introduce the panelists, just a couple of welcoming remarks. First of all, we want to use the full functionality of the platform that we're on. So if you have any questions or comments, please go to the webinar control panel for the moderator and enter your questions there. You can use the audio drop-down box and select either computer or phone audio for your pleasure. And also, I want to remind you to pay attention to your email tomorrow because you will receive a copy of the recording as well as the slides. So with that, let me begin to introduce our panelists. Dawn Davis is the HR generalist for the Village of Richton Park, Illinois, the highest ranking HR professional in the village. Also joining us is Marcus Miller, Chief Diversity Officer for the City of Chicago. Neil Reichenberg, the former Executive Director of the International Public Management Association for Human Resources and current adjunct graduate instructor in public administration at George Mason University, and also John Lopez, who is an account executive for NEOGOV. Panelists, thank you for joining. So let's dive right in to the questions that I'm sure many of our attendees are eager to hear your responses on. Question number one, how can the public sector better market available opportunities? And to start with our responses, I'll call on Dawn Davis. Dawn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julius. Good morning, everyone. So how can the public sector market better available opportunities? For me, some of the things that I like to do, I like to go to job fairs. Of course, we all know social media is a big thing nowadays. Everything is all about online and things of that nature. I also like to go to local high schools and even start partnering with our local colleges as far as getting the young people to know a little bit more about what the local government does. And also for the Village of Richton Park, a couple of years back, we started doing a summer internship for just high schoolers. So from the age of 15 to 18. It was a paid intern. They got about like $9 or $10 an hour, and they worked 20 hours a week. But it also helped them to get the understanding of what a local government does. And some of those who were in our internship program during that time was able to come back and during the college for the summer and actually intern with us again for the summer. So I think when you do those type of things, especially networking with local high schools and colleges and the job fairs, it really gets to, it gets more knowledge about local governments.
Great, Dawn, thank you for that. Marcus Miller, I'd like to ask you to respond to that same question. How can the public sector better market available opportunities?
Thank you, Julius, for the opportunity to participate today. To piggyback on what Dawn shared, I think the public sector can better market available opportunities by, as I say, fishing where the fish are. In this new age of customization, and of course the advent of more technology, it's so much easier to now customize your approach to particular audiences, especially audiences that are under resourced often as well as those that are sometimes overlooked, like people with disabilities, even the veterans community. You can be even more targeted by using some of the tools that are available to customize your approach to marketing available opportunities.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Marcus. And now, Neil, can you respond to that question as well?
Well, thank you, Julius. Appreciate the opportunity to participate and look forward to learning from my fellow panelists. So I guess I can't just say ditto, but I'm currently reading a book. It's called All About Me. It was written by Mel Brooks. Some of you may know he's a well-known filmmaker and actor. And early in his filmmaking career, he went to a mentor and said he was concerned. Was he trying to push the envelope too far? And his mentor gave him this very short advice, which is, if you're going to step up to the bell, make sure you ring it. And I would say that the public sector needs that today when they're recruiting. If you're going to step up to that recruitment bell, make sure that you are being aggressive. You can't be passive today. You got to really give the bell a ring. And so I think you need a holistic strategy. I mean, I agree with everything that Dawn and Marcus said. I don't want to repeat what they said, but something that I think governments in particular may want to look at is, how are they presenting themselves? If you look at your website, if you look at your the way you have your job postings, what type of language are you using? I mean, I saw a report, and it was at the federal level. They talked about how in the private sector, the job announcement for a software engineer was 1 paragraph long, and on USA Jobs, where all the federal jobs are posted, it was 7 pages in length. Which one is going to be more likely to attract applicants? Okay, and then employee referrals. Your employees can be a great source of talent for your organization. And so how can you return your employees into your brand ambassadors? So thank you.
Fantastic. Just to kind of recap a couple of things I heard from the panelists, because I think there's some very good information there. Dawn talked about being able to create opportunities for early engagement, reaching out to those high school students, as well as creating summer internship opportunities where those students can become aware of what's taking place in the opportunities available in the public sector, and then come back to them over time. Marcus talked about something that I think is very important: fishing where the fish are, and utilizing technology to be that lever to create targeted opportunities to go after individuals in areas that have previously been maybe under-resourced or underutilized, including those with disabilities and veterans. And Neil, I love what you said about Mel Brooks's book, All About Me. You're going to step up to the bell, you better ring it. And when you think about the public sector, we've got to be aware of how we present ourselves to others, what our brand is, and how we utilize language to communicate the opportunities that are available in our various areas. So thank you, panelists, for that. Our next question: how can the public sector promote opportunities to attract and retain diverse talent? And Marcus, I'll start with you in a response to that question.
Well, so Julius, I believe the best way for the public sector to promote opportunities to attract and recruit diverse talent is to, in fact, lean into this concept I call the age of customization. There are a number of organizations, both historically Black colleges as well as professional organizations, that would welcome a chance to partner with the public sector, whether it's municipal government or it is the state or county government, to identify those opportunities where individuals can put their talents to use and make a difference where they live, where they want to find goods and services, and also where they want to contribute to the overall well-being of their community.
Absolutely. Marcus, thank you. Neil, if I can go to you to answer that same question, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Julius. And so I think one of the keys for government when they start saying, well, we're going to try to promote these opportunities, we want to be, to attract and recruit diverse talent, is to really highlight the flexibilities that they can provide, because I think that that's really key. We've certainly seen this over the last 2 years with the pandemic about the need for flexibility, remote work. I saw a statistic recently that there's still about 1 million fewer women in the workforce. What can we do, to bring that group back into the workforce? And one of the things repeatedly you hear is that we just need to have flexibility. Remote work is a way that we can reach out to a more a broader applicant pool potentially, because if jobs are fully remote, in theory we can recruit globally. So I think that's an opportunity, and then I think, promoting the opportunities that public sector can provide, the benefits that they provide, the opportunities, the growth potential, and then just the myriad number of jobs that are available in government that a lot of people simply may not be aware of. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. And Dawn, if you could respond to that question as well.
Absolutely. So my two other panelists pretty much took everything that I was going to say, but we all have the same ideas, and especially as HR, I'm always a person that believes in going out there and really, putting your foot to the grind. And I try to go to, so for us, for our community events, our homeowners association, national night outs, things of that nature, we have tables. So we always have something on paper of all of our job openings, our postings. So I think a lot of times, because especially you want to look for people within your communities. A lot of communities do not have a residency requirement, which is good because you can get a more of a diverse applicant pool, I would say. So again, it's all just about going out there, continuing to promote, like Neil mentioned before, you have to be aggressive out here. We're all going after the same people. A lot of us have the same job openings currently right now. So it's all about how bad do you really want to go out there and get the best employee for the village.
Thank you. And a couple of things I want to emphasize that I heard from the panelists. Mark has talked about creating partnering opportunities, which I think is essential for public sector to better present the jobs that it has and attract and recruit diverse talent. Neil talked about flexibility and opportunities for remote work and really being able to publicize the types of jobs we have, the total package, as well as the growth opportunities in public sector. And Dawn mentioned a couple of things I think are important to remember. The collateral material must speak highly of us. And when we go out into those markets, physically go out into those markets, we must have that collateral material available, and we've got to be aggressive in the way we pursue candidates. Next question. I want you to, panelists, if you could share some concrete examples of success in attracting and retaining diverse talent to the public sector. And Neil, I'd like to start that with you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to highlight two quick points. One, I think I've seen some very effective employee videos that public sector organizations have used as a way to kind of highlight diversity both within their workforces as well as in the number of jobs that they have. Two that come to mind: Kitsap County, which is in the state of Washington, put together, and this was all done internally. Okay, it's a video. It's called "She's Had Every Job." And it really shows someone moving from all the different jobs and actually performing the jobs. It's very well done, and it highlights the different types of positions that we have. The city of San Jose had a video that I've seen recently, where they actually show employees talking about the jobs that they have and why they like them, and it presented the diversity, both of the workforce in San Jose, as well as the different opportunities that they have. And the second point I want to make is, some governments have undertaken a branding campaign, and I'll cite two examples there. The city and county of Denver did a branding campaign several years ago, and they came up with a slogan that they use, which is "Be a part of the city that you love," which is a great message, I think. And what they did once they came up with that, they included that on billboards, social media ads, signage around public transit vehicles, and that became, the keystone for all of their recruiting. Be a part of the city that you love. Similarly, the city of Fort Lauderdale in Florida, their slogan is "Find your passion." The city of Fort Lauderdale, a great place to live and work. So a very short, branding effort with a short slogan that kind of says who we are. Thank you.
Fantastic, Neil. Thank you for that. Dawn, if you could respond to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. I agree with Neil as far as the logo or the tag for the Village of Richmond Park. Ours is Village of Richmond Park, your home, hashtag your home. So we've had a lot of some of our candidates who are now employees who did not live in the Village of Richmond Park, but now currently lives in Richmond Park because they found it not also a great place to work, but then it was also a great place to live. So again, I definitely agree about the branding is so very important. And as much as you can push that, I try to push that on all of our job openings whether I'm doing it on our Facebook page, LinkedIn, hashtag your home again. And but Neil, thank you for that. You just gave me a good idea to start doing some recruiting. So I appreciate that. You gave me some other good ideas. I'm taking notes too. Yes, I agree that is very key is branding. And again, if you have some of the employees, we have one employee that's been here for over about 40 years. One employee that has been here for 40 years started out as a high school student in our public works. So I think that's awesome. And again, you can start getting that to where, or have a mentor program, also to where you can start having the young people work with the ones that are actually employees that are here to talk about local government is not bad. Everybody think it's all just, oh, you guys do this and do this. It's really not that bad. We do have great benefits now.
Great, Dawn. Thank you. I'm glad you are taking notes and that you were able to leverage some of the things that Neil talked about. That's the beauty of being on a webinar and sharing. So thank you for those comments. And Marcus, if you could chime in with your thoughts on this question, I'd appreciate it.
Julius, Neil used one of the examples that I was going to share about our friends and colleagues in the city and county of Denver, a very successful campaign. But we've used a variety of tools to attract and retain diverse talent. Of course, we've had some success with our Be the Change campaign in recruiting police officers for the Chicago Police Department. We have a mayoral fellows program that has been increasingly more successful at attracting diverse talent to come for a summer fellows program to carry over in many instances to the fall academic semester. And then once they've graduated, they've actually come onto the city to do some very important policy work. We also, as I mentioned previously, have established some partnerships with some organizations that are focused especially on diverse communities, like, for example, the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, where we've had a longstanding partnership, as well as some of the other organizations like National Black MBA, National Association of Asian American Professionals. We do extensive outreach, and alongside of that, we have been building some retention models that we hope to unveil formally later on in this year.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. A couple of things that I heard that I think are really important for us to keep in mind is the opportunity to create high touch, low cost, in-house tools that allow you to expand the scope, expand the reach that your entities may have into different communities. Neil cited things that were taking place in San Jose and Denver, as well as Fort Lauderdale and Washington State. He also talked about the concept of branding, which Dawn also echoed. And I like to say, if you don't brand yourself, someone else will. And when they do, it will always be less favorable to you than it would be if you branded yourself. So that branding message, how do you want to be the author of your own story and author your own narrative, is certainly important in the public sector. Dawn also talked about personalizing the message to fit the audience. And she gave a specific example about the village of Richmond Park. And then Marcus followed up talking about some of the things that are happening in the city of Chicago and other places with Be the Change program in the city of Chicago. And what I also like to add to the discussion around this particular area is that there are tools out there, there are things out there that other people have done where we don't have to recreate the wheel. I like to use the analogy case, which is copy and steal everything, but you can't steal it in the same format that it was presented, because each entity, each public sector entity, whether we're talking about Chicago, Richmond Park, Fort Lauderdale, Denver, there are nuanced issues in each of those areas. So whereas you can get an ideal of what other people are doing, also want to make sure it fits your particular situation as you go out into the marketplace and try to attract and retain diverse talent in the public sector. Let's move on to our next question. Panelists, I really appreciate your contributions. Perception versus reality. How can the public sector better compete against the private sector when attracting and retaining diverse talent? And Dawn, we'll go ahead and start with you on that one.
Okay. Some of the things, I've come from private sector before I came to public sector, so it was a oh wow moment for me. Because there were a lot of things that I was used to, a lot of things being electronically done versus, some public sectors are still doing paper. A couple of things I will say, and I believe Neil touched about this before, is a flexible schedule arrangement, a work schedule. So for example, some of the things in the private sector, sometimes they did 4 days, 10 hours work week, which that worked out great because you have, especially when you have different ones, if you have different staff members in one department, everyone doesn't always have to be out on the same day. So that's always a good one, the flexible work schedule. And then also the work from home. And like Neil mentioned before, again, with the pandemic, we learned a lot about that working from home can actually be beneficial. Actually, you do more work when you work from home. You have a lot less distractions. We've learned that. So I think for me, those are two things that really, I would say, will really help the public sector. And again, benefits. It's some things that are not as costly as most people think they are, that you can actually utilize in the public sector.
Great. Thank you, Dawn, for sharing. And if we could, Marcus, if you can chime in on that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Julius, I think that the question about perception versus reality really rings true because of what we've experienced due to the pandemic. But I would have to add that as we've talked previously about branding, the ability to communicate the quality of life that can come from city employment, I think really has enormous value. I've talked to a number of people because I too came from the private sector into a public service role. And there is something to be said for the ability to have a greater work-life balance. It doesn't work, of course, for everyone because places like Chicago, and I'm guessing even Richmond Park, operate 24/7, 365. But for the most part, people are able to have such a quality of life that they usually are able to get to work at a reasonable time, leave and have the ability to spend time with their family. That's not always the case in the private sector. And then I'll also say that from attracting talent and retaining talent standpoint, we sometimes overlook the fact that public service is something that everyone should aspire to. And if that's incorporated in your message and your branding, it will resonate with people, and people will actually stay in their role because they realize how much good they're doing for themselves and for their neighbors.
Fantastic, Marcus. Thank you for those comments. And Neil, if you could share with us your thoughts on this question, we appreciate it.
Okay, three quick points. One, and Marcus and Dawn both really hit on this, but again, the mission of government, I really think, is the competitive advantage that government has over the private sector. Certainly during the pandemic, government was on the front lines in fighting the pandemic and assisting the public. And when I was with IPMA, we had done some work on employee engagement, and one of the things that we found was for those who were highly engaged, one of their key drivers was the ability to serve the public with integrity, and you really have to emphasize that. Two, I think government needs to look at how are we treating our applicants. Okay, what's the applicant experience? They're really customers, and the private sector has been very focused on customer experience, customer satisfaction. Even now, when you go to a doctor or a medical facility, they want to know how did we do, and we should really start treating our applicants as if they are customers, particularly in government where they're also citizens, right? And so how are we treating them? The third, and this may be a little bit beyond the focus of this webinar, but I want to quickly mention it, is the need to train our managers to eliminate biases. And I saw a survey earlier this week by an organization called Resume Builder, in which they asked hiring managers, when you review resumes, applications, do you have an age bias? 38% said yes. Okay, when we hear we can't find employees, but yet if our managers are screening out people that might otherwise be qualified because we are concerned about their age, I think that's going to be a problem, and it's going to be harder to compete. Again, this may be beyond the scope. It probably could be a separate webinar on it. And they ask them why, and these reasons are really stereotypes, right? The top three: they lack technical experience, they're going to retire soon, and they're all set in their ways. So in case there's anyone who's in their 20s who's listening today, and you're thinking, well, this is good, I'll have more opportunity, these same hiring managers express concern with those that are in their early to mid 20s. What did they say about them? They're unreliable, they're going to leave soon, and they lack experience. So, I just want to raise that issue as something to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and I appreciate the comments that Marcus and Dawn, you all shared as well. And just want to recap a couple of things. I think it's important to take these key points and takeaways away. One is, as Dawn mentioned and had been talked about previously, the flexibility that's offered in a public sector role versus a private sector role. And Marcus echoed that from talking about the quality of life that is available more so in the public sector than the private sector. And the fact that a lot of people understand and feel good about the mission that public sector employees are associated with, whether it's the city of Chicago, Richmond Park, or other places. It's a big advantage that public sector has, that they can really specifically speak to the mission of that particular public sector entity, and know that the people that they are engaging help to support that, because they may also be community residents. Neil raised some really good points, and I love the idea of understanding what our biases are and really getting to that point where we understand how we present to the external world. He talked about it from a standpoint of the experience that our applicants have, which is how I talk about it when I talk about the user experience. If the people who come to public sector opportunities in your area aren't treated well, that word gets around, and that negatively impacts your ability to attract and retain people. And I always say, if you can't sell it on the inside, you can't sell it on the outside. Meaning, if the people who are currently members of your team can't tell a good story about how they're experiencing life day to day in the environment that they're in, it's going to be very difficult for you to recruit. Similarly, if the recruits that you're going after can't tell a good story about their experience with you, it's going to be very difficult for you to attract and maintain the type of diverse talent that you need in order to fulfill your mission by staffing appropriately those positions that are available. Neil also talked about the aspect of training, and we can't overlook training for those individuals who are part of our team. And again, branding comes into play in that, and then the mission of our entity, the mission of our governmental entity. So a lot of good stuff there, and looking forward to getting tomorrow's email, which will contain the recording and the slides as well. I want to take a break just for a quick second. I want to check in with John to see if we have received any questions or comments from chat that might be something we can talk about at this point in time. John, have you received anything via chat?
Yeah, so I have the first question is going to be a NEOGOV question. I figure I'll address that really quickly first. Question is, in a world where flexibility is important, what digital tools can we use to reach candidates online? So flexibility through tools, there are things like syndication, which is a way to take one job posting and make it available on other places across the web. We also give you the tools to help optimize your applicant pool so that you guys can easily search for whether it's skills, job titles, demographics, and go back and proactively reach out to those customers, or applicants, I'm sorry. So we have a number of ways that not only allow you to kind of take your work and replicate it across the web through the platform, but also the tools to go back and look really quickly and concisely for applicants that might meet qualifications that you're now looking for. So a question for the panel. Working from home can affect the relationships we build with employees. What are things we can do as HR professionals to not affect the relationships we build with our employees?
Great question. Neil, can I start with you on that one? What's your take on the impact of remote work on employee relationships and being able to ensure there's good connection?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. But we're really, to me, the bigger issue is the culture of the organization and how do we maintain that culture in a remote environment. And I really think communication is going to become key. You can't have people feel as though they're totally isolated. They're sort of on an island. I taught a graduate class for the first time a year ago, and I taught remotely. I had no contact with the university, right? I used to tell my students when they asked questions about I said, I'm on an island here. So I really think it's that. I really think managers need to make sure that they're engaging regularly with their employees, that they're checking in on them, that the organization is communicating about what's going on. And I think particularly when you bring on you're onboarding new employees, it's really crucial in a remote environment because they may not know anyone, they have no relationships. And so I really think that focusing on them in particular and making sure that your onboarding program is appropriate for those working remotely.
Great, thank you. Marcus, you want to chime in on that? Anything you want to add?
I absolutely agree with Neil, and I amplify what he said by suggesting that this is where DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion principles really come into play. Thinking about those individuals who are working remote, who are not necessarily connecting in a one-on-one type arrangement or in a traditional arrangement. And then most importantly, those individuals for whom remote work has been an actual game changer because they've not had the ability to access what we would call traditional work. Those are those areas where thinking about the diversity of your employee base, as well as the inclusion process that you engage in, become really, really critical.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. Dawn, anything to add?
Sure. I agree with both Marcus and Neil. As far as one of the things I always had, especially during the pandemic, I always asked my supervisors, my department heads, check on your people at all times. We even did Zoom lunches sometimes. We did after hour Zoom calls just to, kind of relax, because again, it was a tense situation. Everybody's going through their own things. And then on top of that, most people had never did a work from home environment. So it was totally new to them. So again, believing in the communication is very key. And also, like I said, just constantly checking in. As from an HR standpoint, I check on everyone. That's just my nature. I believe in checking on everyone. And again, just having your department heads, your supervisors check on each other. Send a text. Hey, hopefully everyone's having a great day. You have any questions, again, give me a call, Zoom call. So again, that way you still have that face-to-face reaction to everyone, even though, yes, you're working from home, you may just always just be on the telephone, but it's also good to see a smiling face every now and then. So,
Dawn, you mentioned a great point, and I like to phrase it like this: check up before you check in. Give people a chance to check up, to tell you how they're doing, to solicit that feedback from them. Some people in a remote environment are doing very well, others are suffering. So we always want to check up on the people who are part of our team before we check in necessarily on those purely business related issues. Marcus talked about the diversity of the employee base and really honing in on those DEI principles, because remote work has been a game changer. And Neil talked about understanding the culture of the organization. When I talk about culture, I talk about values. I talk about it as something being embedded versus climate, which is like, it's above the water level. It gets to priorities, but priorities change. So we want to make sure the things that we're doing are embedded in the culture versus just checking on things that are above the surface of the water, because those things are climate related and climate changes. John, were there any other questions that we can answer quickly before we move on?
Yeah, we got one more from Lisa, and that last question was from Mulan Lee, so thank you for that. Lisa's questions: what are your thoughts about apprenticeship programs to increase diversity?
Okay. Why don't we start with Marcus on that one? Because I know you mentioned something earlier about the Mayoral Fellows program here in the city of Chicago. So what are your thoughts on apprenticeship programs as a tool to increase diversity?
I think they're absolutely essential, because a lot of times, and I think Don made this point earlier, people don't realize what kind of opportunities may be available, and the ability to bring young people into government as an apprentice, or for that matter, not just young people, but other people who may not have been in steady or full-time employment, really changes their appreciation for public service. And it also provides for additional opportunity to train someone such that when an opportunity is available, they're able to be slotted in. And I think that there's some data that suggests that apprenticeship programs can actually be a lower cost talent acquisition strategy than actually doing full-fledged recruiting.
Great, thank you. Dawn, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Marcus really covered it. He covered it all, so I'm good.
Great. Neil, any comments on that as well?
Yeah, Marcus did a great job. I would just say I think that those are valuable programs, and it's really a way to start building the pipeline, right, within the organization of people that can start to move into the organization and move up through the organization. So I think it's a great idea.
Great. A couple of key thoughts there. It's essential that people realize opportunities in the public sector. It's, again, one of those low cost, high touch opportunities that expose a broader range of applicants and potential team members to the things that we have in place, and it helps to build the pipeline. Thank you, panelists, for that. John, I'm going to move on to question number 5 now. This is the last prepared question that we have. What is the value of having automated systems to support your efforts? And how is this technology supporting your ability to attract and retain diverse talent? I'm going to start there with Marcus Miller. Marcus, if you could start us off with a response to that question, I appreciate it.
Well, for us, and I'm sure for other public sector employees, more technology has been both a blessing and a curse, in that, as Dawn brought the point up much earlier, transitioning to a new way of doing things means you have to invest in more staffed learning and development. At the same time, having more automation means you can actually be more efficient and effective, not just in terms of lowering your costs because you don't need as many people, but in actually being able to reach further into your communities and deepen your relationship because you've now got information at your fingertips. And certainly from a talent acquisition standpoint, from a applicant tracking perspective, more automation is better than less.
Great. Thank you, Marcus. And we'll move on to Neil. If you could share some thoughts on that question, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the technology is crucial. It's an enabler of everything that you are trying to achieve, and certainly today, people want to be able to take out their phones and apply for a job. Do you have that technology to be able to do that? And I think a lot of your applicants are going to be looking at how is it, what technology are you utilizing? And if you're saying, well, here's the PDF, fill out the job application, they're probably moving on. I have 3 technology advisors. They're my 3 grandchildren. The oldest is, when I have a technology question, I go to them, and often they say to me, "You don't know that?" And I say, "Well, so I really think that it's important to the extent you can. Now, you can get into budget issues, and that can be a challenge for the public sector as compared to the private sector. How do we budget for technology? So it could be a challenge to kind of keep up, and then as well, when you look at what is the impact technology is having overall on the workforce. I saw a study that said globally, over the next several years, there's going to be 1 billion jobs that are going to change because of technology, right? And so we've got to be aware of that, and what do we need to do when jobs change? How do we reskill, upskill our current employees? So I really think you need a sort of organization-wide strategy concerning how we're going to deal with technology, but it's absolutely crucial today. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Neil. And Dawn, any comments you have on that question?
Absolutely. So for me, I'm a department of 1, so I don't know how many other department of 1s we have on the webinar today, but it is very, very important. It helps throughout the day, through my work day, through everything. But again, the challenge is getting a lot of the supervisors and on board. And I noticed that, so for some of my applicants that we've had, some of them had never done those things like applying online. They just wanted to come in, give a hard copy. And again, we try not to turn everyone away, but we're trying to streamline everything because again, I can easily just, hey, once the applicant comes in on the website, I can forward it to the manager, we review it and things of that nature. So it does make it, it's very easy especially for a department of 1 to go ahead throughout the day and get the other 10,000 things we have on our plate done. And again, so for us, a lot of our new hires wasn't used to being a self-service. So once they're into our system, they can make all their changes as far as the address changes, their tax forms, things of that nature. So technology is a great thing, but again, you do have your little glitches every now and then. But for the most part, it is hands down, it helps a lot. So it's very important.
Fantastic, thank you. And what I heard from all 3 of our panelists with regard to automated systems is that it's absolutely essential. Marcus talked about it being both a blessing and a curse, and having to do that cost analysis that compares cost to the expected efficiencies, but it can deepen the relationship. Neil brought up the point that we need to understand technology's impact on jobs, and that our applicants are looking to actually see what do we have available from a technology standpoint. And if it doesn't match up with their expectation, they may move on to the next opportunity. And then Dawn talked about it from the perspective of it's streamlining processes. I think we all understand over the course of the last 2 years with the pandemic and the nature of flexible work schedules and remote work, that genie is out of the bottle, and that people are looking for ways to have an easier access and transition to their ability to work outside of the normal office environment. So technology becomes a great tool for that. With that, I want to thank the panelists for their contributions, and I want to provide John Lopez with an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the things that NEOGOV does. So John, floor is yours.
Thank you, Julius, and to the rest of the panelists, thank you so much. You all did a fantastic job today providing invaluable information to our attendees. So thank you all so much. So NEOGOV, before I get a little into about, what we do, let me tell you why we do it. We have serviced the public sector for a little over 20 years, and we truly believe the technology we provide to the different cities and counties and state agencies across the country will provide a better service to our citizens. Our slogan at NEOGOV is that we serve the people who serve the people. Actor Denzel Washington might have said it best, okay? Maybe he had a little history in HR, not sure, but ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work. Like, goodness, does that not just scream HR? I don't know if Denzel might have been an HR manager or director prior to, but to impact change, our public agencies need to have the best tools. A farmer can't sow their crops without tools. Same goes with HR. Whether we are growing or developing our workforce, we need to keep moving, keep growing, and keep learning. Now, to talk a little bit about what we do, we are the most utilized public sector software in the country. We cover the complete employee life cycle, hire to retire. About 25% of public agencies use NEOGOV in some capacity across the country. So when you're evaluating a potential partner, we are truly experts when it comes to all the tricky nuances that we have to deal with in the public sector. And let's be honest, this is a fast evolving, competitive job market in today's landscape. And NEOGOV HR Suite really empowers public sector HR to streamline those processes in a competitive, in a centralized platform, Focusing on our recruiting and attraction, which we heard a lot of valuable information from the panelists today. Coupled with technology, our system will help create an even landscape for applicants. So to be evaluated and critiqued on skills versus things like age and gender and demographic. We have the ability and tools that can help hide PII information so that your department heads see exactly the information that we want them to, those skills, qualifications, versus more of who am I talking to or who's the other person on the other side. Create visibility and more streamlined channels of communication with applicants as well as department heads alike. Focus on ease to apply and ease to apply as well as communication with department heads. Staying compliant with ADA as well as 5033 compliant features is all embedded in the tools. Generate and save reports to identify bottlenecks in your recruiting process, or even build custom reports to have them ready for monthly and quarterly meetings. And one of my personal favorites, and I'm going to steal a little bit of this from Julius, but the NEOGOV community, big place for case, copy and steal everything, okay? It's a place to collaborate with other agencies, share information. So from the recruiting side, let's think comp studies, job descriptions, even forms in our onboarding process. On the development side, these might be competencies that we manage and identify for our workforce. All that is shared within the NEOGOV community. It's personally one of my favorite features that we have on the platform. So really, to retain employees and develop as well, you can track and manage performance, identify future leaders, engage with your workforce around their performance, couple that with a training system to really empower new hires or even existing employees to grow at their existing positions, or at least feel that they can enhance their skill sets to apply for something else within the organization. NEOGOV is truly a system that will prepare you for the future. We are a system that you can grow with as your needs evolve or as opportunities present themselves. So thanks again, Julius. I'll pass it back to you for some final words, and I appreciate everybody that attended as well.
John, thank you. I want to share with you the information for all of our panelists who had an opportunity to speak today. You can see it there. I'm going to leave it up for a little bit so that you can screenshot it or take down whatever information that you'd like that will allow you to be able to connect with each of them. Certainly there was a lot of great information that was shared, and Dawn, Marcus, Neil, John, we certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share your knowledge and expertise and to respond to questions from some of the attendees who offered those questions up. I'd like to remind each of you to be on alert for an email that you will receive tomorrow that will contain a recording of this presentation as well as a copy of the slides. And I'd also like to add this: the real beauty of this presentation is, one, having an opportunity to hear from the presenters, from the panelists, but even more so than that, the opportunity to connect with other individuals who are doing similar or like-minded work in other parts of the country. If you can identify and make a contact, and you can certainly utilize chat to do it, to make a contact where you can ask people, hey, are they willing to connect with you on LinkedIn or whatever other profile? It gives you an additional resource, an additional tool to help you address some of the concerns that you face on a daily basis. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending. Please utilize the information that you'll receive tomorrow, both the recording and the slides, to help make your situations better, not just for yourself, but certainly for the teams. If you have any questions, you can reach out to contact@neogov.com to learn more about their program and also the information on our presenters today. So with that, panelists, I'd like to thank you each for taking some more of your time out of the day to share with us the things that you shared. I wish all of you an enjoyable rest of the day. Be safe, be well, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on the next NEOGOV webinar. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.